I think the most important topic I would give as an advice is to be authentic.
Tea or coffee?
Difficult
That's a mean
question.
one. I know that.
Yeah.
And now, your podcast hosts, Andre and Christian.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Connecting for Future. There are many ways in which technology can be used to make the world a better place. We are convinced that we can overcome today's challenges if we connect great people, inspiring ideas, and innovative technology.
Today, we are honored to have Dirk Ramhorst as guest. He not only is the CIO of Evonik Industries, which is a German specialty chemicals company, but also Regatta chairman of Kiel Week and responsible for the Olympic sailing in the German Sailing Association. Dirk, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
We prepared a long list of topics, actually, we would like to cover today, starting from technology to people, from sustainability to passion. So let's get started to cover as much as possible.
We are currently facing a lot of challenges, be it the energy crisis, non-reliable supply chains, or the war for talents. Technology can help at least to cope with some aspects of these challenges. What is the secret to bring technology to life in your opinion?
It's the understanding of data, because this is the kind of fuel for all kind of technology we're talking about. It's the source of wisdom that we need to generate with data scientists and others. But it's also very important because it gives us the direction by learning from data from the past and by interpolation also to look into the future.
So when we talk about data, it's interesting that you state that. My hypothesis would be that a lot of companies have a lot of data, but don't put a lot of effort into meaningful ideas to really generate intelligence out of the data. What do you think about
This
that?
is correct. I mean, I think we are full of data. Whatever we do, if we are manufacturing, in trading, or in just selling products, and due to the feeling that there are a lot of restrictions, people have a natural distance to really dig into the data. And this is something we have to overcome in order to use this benefit and dig for the insights.
Do you think that's the case only for like individuals or also for CEOs of bigger companies?
I mean, is leadership in Germany in the past meant always that you learned about not to share personal data, etc. So you were trained on the restriction of data, not on the value of data. And this is part of my personal mission, really to share and document and motivate people to understand the value of data, not by the data as such, but for example, by the combination of data, by bringing different sources together, internal and external.
To implement technology means that also people need to adapt and need to change. And I think this change will be even faster in the future. So what's your view on people driving technology and implementing technology?
I personally believe that technology, and in my scope, information technology, in other words, IT, is the area in any corporation that is facing most innovations. So it's the most dynamic area where you lose the knowledge of what you know today. If I look back to my own experience of 30 years in the industry, the programming languages that I've learned are no longer relevant. I mean, COBOL and assembler and things like this.
Right.
What is still relevant is the logic, how you do things like this. But compared to the state of art, programming languages and programming interfaces, etc., my knowledge has aged. And I think this is very important for example, for a role like mine as a CIO, but for any kind of leadership role in IT, to establish a thinking of a learning organization, which means you have to continuously keep your knowledge up to date. You have to be open to say, okay, instead of read this book and then you're done, you have to learn reading because there are more books to come.
Right.
And this is very important for your questions, Andre, related to the way of implementing technology, because it's not done by just doing this new software. There's a new software after this new software, and there will be even a further one coming along the road. And you have always to deal with those innovations that are enabled and brought by technology.
Right. And Dirk, just like when I think about a CIO, you need to protect huge organizations. How would you think about getting up every morning? What motivates you to get up and be ahead of the game?
I think what drives me in this regards is the impact that IT could play, the impact that IT could have. In many organizations, IT is seen as a cost factor. So usually you only talk about IT if something is not working. If your PC is not booting fast enough, or you have a bad Teams connection or whatever.
But this is changing, right?
Yes, because people start, and organizations and corporations as well, start understanding the value of IT. IT becomes, not only because of the topic of digital, becomes a differentiating factor. Of course, there's still a commodity side of IT that needs to work as planned and in the way of it costs. But there's another way where you can really differentiate the business, so to speak, in sales or in engineering or in R&D. And this brings us back then again to the data topic. When I started working in IT, it was called data processing. Yeah. So and even 30 years ago, it was all about data. So now we have different methodologies and technologies that gives us insights into data in a different way we were not even dreaming of 30 years ago. And this is then the key to unlock this level of being recognized as an enabler.
How would you rate the importance of the IT talking to the different business units?
I mean, as I said, there's a commodity layer, and this needs to be in a good price quality ratio. And this is where you have to fulfill certain levels of service levels or whatever. Fine. If you talk to businesses, you really talk to a very individual way of supporting different businesses. And this is very important that you start speaking the language of the business. You start understanding the challenges and the concerns of the business. And again, related to the data, you have a good understanding of the data strategy. So what is the data they have already? What is the data they need? What is the maturity of the data they have? And what is the delta? And out of this, then really provide a set of technology that close the gap and improves the way the individual business can handle their data and be more effective and more successful in their business.
In regards to data, Dirk, our last guest was Ben Hodges, the former commander of the United States Army in Europe and Africa. He spoke about cybersecurity and that attacks happen every day, like waves on the ocean, every few seconds, constantly. Individuals, governments, or even government-funded groups are trying and also attacking small to big and global organizations. So just for our listeners, what is the first thing you do in the morning, Dirk? Do you read reports which you get, or do you start with emails, checking your inbox as what is important?
I usually try to start very digital detoxed because over the day I'm always connected. So the first view on the phone is if I have received any calls or received any messages that show that we had any kind of major failure or whatever. If this is not the case, I mean, I have enough responsibilities in the organization split it so that I have a chief information security officer, for example. If I have nothing heard from him, everything is still on green or amber. If I do not receive any major incident report from my operations guys, also all the operations is running. So this is fine. So I'm not checking emails while just, let's say, spend the first minutes after the alarm clock here.
Okay.
And I'm not asking when you get up because I'm afraid of the answer, so I'm not asking.
Yes, but it depends on what I do in terms of if I commute into the office or if I have to take a train somewhere else too.
All right.
And Dirk, you just looking to yourself, you're like a very sporty guy, right? So you do like sailing, I know that's your ambition, but also cycling and horse riding. So that's about getting in shape, staying in shape. So currently, what's your favorite? Would it be cycling? Would it be horse riding?
No, I mean, now we are in the ugly months of March, and it's still pretty cold outside. So therefore, outdoor activities, either on the horse or on the bicycle, is a little bit limited in terms of the fun factor. So if I have time, I go indoor cycling. With the horse, it's difficult. But so it's in anyway only 1 or 2 times a month. But yeah, so I prefer this kind of, and even like you said, sailing. So the season has not started yet, at least in Europe or in Germany specific. So this maybe starts after Easter.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
So sailing is one of your passions, Dirk. You're not only the regatta chairman of Kiel Week. You're also responsible for the Olympic sailing in the German Sailing Association. Mm-hmm. What do you think we all in organizations can learn from sports like sailing?
I think, first of all, it's a very complex sport. So you have to take into account many different variables in performing this sport to an Olympic level, but even to an, let's say, amateur level as well. So there's stream in the water, there's the wind, of course, the boat. If you sail for competition, you have to take into account also the competitors, and this you have all to do in real time. You cannot do any simulations because you do not know how the competitors will behave. You can assume how they behave, but you're not sure. You have to do it while you do the race, and so therefore, talking to the sailors and dealing with the sailors, you have a very attractive group also of talents that I also try to attract for example, jobs in digitalization or IT, because they can deal with this set of complexities. This is very interesting. On the other side, and this is more generic to any kinds of semi-professional or professional sports, you have to deal with your ambition in terms of goal setting, working on the goal setting in terms of step by step, on your discipline. I mean, you asked me about wake-up times. When I was a sportsman myself, I had to go to exercise before I went to school. So every morning, 5 o'clock, I went into the swimming pool and had my training before, and then afterwards went to school. So this needs a lot of discipline. This needs a lot of vision of what you want to achieve, in other words, goals. And what I have learned, and many of my athletes I'm working with have this as well, is the capability to have realistic goals. Not to have any fancy thing, but really to be very realistic of what you can achieve. And then always balance what is the thing you can put on the table and something that you cannot influence because of limited capabilities or money in terms of professional sailing campaigns or things like this. And this is very impressive.
Right, and you also mentioned talents, right? So organizations face this war for talents where you're just getting people who are highly motivated. On the other side, you manage every year now, since many years, so many volunteers for Kieler Week. How do you motivate people, like saying, hey, look, we work for my organization, or be like a volunteer for the Kieler Week? Is there like a secret you have?
First of all, compared to many professional organizations, there's a major difference in terms of intrinsic motivation to extrinsic motivation. So intrinsic motivation as a volunteer is really about making things happen. So those volunteers in a certain way need attention. Yeah, so you have to make sure that you not overdo it by utilizing them, for example, with long days and a lot of kind of mission impossible you give them. but by spreading the word of the experience of be part of this event like Kiel Week. This is what really brings a lot of motivation to the people.
Yeah, that's what's my feeling as well. You don't have to motivate them; they are motivated by themselves, right? And you have a great team there.
Yes, but you have to build an environment that serves this expectation in a certain way. Give you an example. Sometimes the Kiel Week usually is in the week of Midsummer Night. This means we can sail, if the wind is good, we can sail until 10 o'clock in the evening. And we did so. We had some years where there was very low wind in the morning, and we postponed the races to start in the afternoon and ended in the evening. The volunteers are highly committed, but when they return from the water and the restaurants are already closed, they have a problem. And so, for example, over the course of the time, we implemented a kind of buffet for the officials, the athletes, get their own stuff, but I really talk about the volunteers, so that they can, whenever they come from the water, they still get something to eat as a kind of thank you for what you have done for the day. And this is very important. And we have also 2 evenings. So the Kiel Week is 9 days of sailing, and 2 evenings of the 9 days, because we have 2 parts in the Kiel Week. Those 2 evenings are dedicated to the volunteers by a kind of official reception. And we have sponsors and the city of Kiel then making the normal dinner more special. And then we have also a lottery, and you can have a lucky draw of winning something, even cruise, because we work with AIDA. So the major prize is a cruise for a week somewhere in the Mediterranean, for example. And this gives a lot of motivation to the people, because they get recognized and they get a feedback and a kind of resonance for what they do in their commitment they give to the Kiel Week. And during the Kiel Week, it's up to 350 to 450 people.
Huh. Yeah, and communication is key as well, right? So when I visited you 2 years ago, I think there was no wind. Mm-hmm. And your team was thinking about what to do next. And you know, what struck me was that the kind of professionalism to answer to this situation. And the answer was, okay, the emergency guys, the doctors, the emergency teams, they were training because they didn't have anything to do and didn't say, okay, we make a break or whatever, but they thought about, you know, how can we spend the time?
Yeah, it's a good observation you took away. So we had usually we have up to 10 different race courses, and those race courses are supported by different emergency services organization like the Red Cross or the Deutsche Gesellschaft zur Rettung Seebrüchiger or DLRG and others. And because of the voluntary side on my end and their voluntary side, there's hardly any option in order to really train how to hand over if, for example, a sailor has capsized, to make sure that you get the sailor away from the ship, etc., etc. And Andre, like you reported, they practiced this while there was no wind, and so they on the one hand side, the handover was trained. On the other side, for the emergency services, they got more in touch with the sailors and the different boats and the sizes of the boats, so that they were able to deal with the situation better. But we always say after Kiel Week is before Kiel Week, and definitely it's 11 months preparation. But what you cannot prepare is the wind. And you have every morning 8:15 we have also a meeting with our weather frog, so to speak, a very senior advisor to the German television, but also to many sailing initiatives around the globe. And then we lay out the portfolio for the day to say, okay, what is the wind we can expect? And based on this forecast, then we make our decisions. So can we start directly? Then the first start is by 11 o'clock. If there's no wind in the afternoon, like I said, we have long days, so can be postponed, so that the sailors are also not waiting the whole day in the harbor, but they can just come back by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Or, and this is still a good situation, or if we expect a kind of weather front with thunderstorms and heavy winds, when do we expect this? Can we make sure that all sailors are back from the sea? These are the questions we have to answer as a team, as a leadership team. And I, as a leader of this whole group, then I have to take the personal responsibility for the decision we take. And this is, this is my second life, let's call it this way.
Yeah, but it's very interesting, right? So you even got strong partners, right? Like with Audi is new now to the Kieler Week, thanks to your effort and to
I think
your
it's
work.
not new, actually.
It's not new?
No, it's more than 10 years. Really.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought it's new.
They have been out for 2 years, and now for the second year they're back.
Okay.
So it's a long relationship. But what is a driving force for almost all of our partners is sustainability. And even the Audi e-tron, for example, years ago was launched in Kiel. So it was part of our initiative to showcase that we have a strong interest in sustainability. We have some limitations. If you have a global event, we have more than 4,000 participants coming from more than 60 countries. They cannot come with their bicycle, carrying their boat. So we have some limitations. Nevertheless, while running the event, we try to optimize our footprint. And this year, for example, we will have the first time a footprint reporting, really to showcase what we have to manage in future by compensation, because we cannot be neutral by definition, so to speak, or by, for example, replacing certain systems by more sustainable systems. And years ago, for example, 2 years ago, it was already before the pandemic, 2019, we implemented a recycle or kind of circular system for cups that you had in the harbor. So if you had a beer in the one tent and you go back to the other, then you could recycle it and you get deposit back. And this massively reduced the rubbish and litter things. On the other side, we have, for example, looked into e-mobility for carrying our boats in the harbor. We tried to minimize the footprint by motorboats. There's still need motorboats in order to be safeguarding the sailors.
Right. Yeah.
But let's optimize this. We try to do beach cleanings. We make separation of litter with also different partners. And starting in 2019, the Kiel Week has been awarded by the organization Sailors of the Sea by their Platinum Award, which is the highest category you can get from this organization for running a sailing event. And meanwhile, we had been awarded 3 times with this high level of recognition by a global organization. And now we want to go one step further into a footprint reporting for the sports this year. And potentially also next year for the whole event, and here event for all people on the audience. We talk about more than 3.5 million visitors. So this is, again, goal setting, this is our goal.
I know your engagement in the sailing sports also gives you a lot of energy for your job as CIO. How does this work, and how do you fit all of your activities in one day?
That's a good question. So my day also still have 24 hours, and I'm not a kind of guy that don't need any sleep, so I need some sleep. Simply by management by delegation. So my role in Kiel Week is I'm responsible, which does not mean I have to do all the things myself. I'm more the mechanic that brings the wheels of the clock together once a year, but I don't have to make and drill all the wheels myself. So we have teams working on this all year long, and my role is to be the director, the one that is orchestrating the sound of an orchestra, but the violins and the percussions and the drums, they have all practiced and performed and trained to a very professional level by themselves. And I'm just standing up and then giving directions for the event. It's a little bit more, but it's really to say it's only a couple of hours a month that comes together because of a very, very well trained and very well experienced team. And it's a group of 20 people that work really year long, and then over the event, as I said, 350 to 450 people then as a maximum.
Quick fire round.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee for a couple of months now.
Well, I would have thought it's tea. But if you would have asked me what is Dirk going to answer, it would have been tea.
Yeah, for years it was tea, but in a very funny occasion, everybody ordered an espresso, and I did so. And my friend was looking at me saying, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Okay, I'm not giving any kind of disclosure that I'm not drinking coffee." So I tried it, and I really enjoyed it. And since it might be a year ago, I drink coffee.
Subway or Uber?
Bicycle. Okay, it's not an option. Especially when I'm traveling in cities, I try to be on surface. But on the other side, as I try to minimize my footprint, I try to go public service. So therefore, subway.
Huh, cool.
Horse riding or sailing?
Oh, difficult.
That's a mean one. I know that.
Yeah. One after the other, not together. Actually, really doing things, I'm more on horse riding than on sailing because, horse riding you can really plan as long as the horse is okay. But if I say, this weekend, the upcoming weekend, I go sailing, the potential that there's wind and is not always given. So therefore, the prediction of doing something is given in horse riding. And I would say horse riding.
In regards to soccer, for your old role and the new role, Bayern Munich or Borussia Dortmund?
I was in the Champions League games, home games of Borussia 2 weeks ago and yesterday of Munich. But my heart is still with Munich.
So we have to end the talk now, please. Just kidding. Dirk, we also want to inspire young leaders with our podcast here. So is there any suggestion from your side what you would say young leaders should do to be successful?
I think the most important topic I would give as an advice is to be authentic. Be yourself. Not try to be somebody else in terms of expectation. I think this is very important because if you lead and you have maybe your first team or later on a large organization, etc., it's very important that they really get to know you in the way you are in a certain way, and this is very important. You cannot play a role. Maybe you can do it once, but you cannot do it consistently over a long term and time. And this is maybe the most important topic. On the other side, like we said earlier, if you have a team, we are back to the sports. You have to set realistic goals. You have to lead them to success. It's not done by giving goals. It's also by establishing a surrounding and an environment of support so that each and everybody can meet his or her goals in terms of realizing this. And this is very important.
That's a great set of advice. Thank you, Dirk.
Welcome. It was a pleasure to be here in Düsseldorf.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. We hope you found this episode informative and helpful. Follow this podcast for more great conversations with global leaders and inspiring stories across the world. Stay tuned, take care, and all the best. Your podcast host, Andre and Christian.